So, about a week ago, I talked about the Taras Nabad Master Level news, and today I wanted to talk about the pacing of said Master Level, and how I think it's important to always have good pacing in Doom Eternal maps, Master Levels or just regular levels. If they wanted to, id Software could have 50 Tyrants, 50 Barons in their Master Levels, and just bog down the gameplay like that, just bog down the pacing completely. And that would suck. That would not make for a fun map. Some would argue that it would be challenging, but even so, it's not really challenging to throw like 50 Tyrants about the place. But it would ruin the pacing, that is true. And I think what id Software is trying to do is take a look at these master levels and really think about what they are placing in them, in terms of monster placement, obviously. And they don't want to just put 50 Tyrants about the place, because one, that's not fun, and two, that just breaks the pacing. So I think what Taras Nabad, the master level, should focus on, if it wants to keep up good pacing, is just good, maybe experimental monster placements. I think Super Gore Nest can be directly comparable to this Taras Nabad master level, and yes, it's true that the Super Gore Nest master level does have low points. Not every encounter is going to kick the player's ass. The room with the Hell Knights, carcasses, and tentacles is not as hard as the big arena with like 3 archviles and like 4 tyrants. It's just not the same level of difficulty, and I think that's what Taras Nabad is trying to achieve. But that being said, those two rooms are trying to pull off different sort of effects. The first carcass room with the tentacles is just trying to sort of poke at the player, and it's more of a combat puzzle, while the big arena at the end is really trying to push the player and make him sweat. They're trying to challenge the player, but in different ways. The first carcass room is trying to make the player think, and while, the arena at the end is still making the player engaged and think, it's just different. It's more about chucking big, giant monsters in the player's face to see how they handle it. And this is what the Taras Nabad level is definitely going to have to improve its pacing, and I think the Super Gore Nest master level does a pretty good job of keeping up a good pace. I mean, there's never really a dull moment. And that is of course also due to the new environmental hazards that Super Gore Nest master level implements, like the fog in the Marauder room or the underwater section with the tentacles. Those environmental changes really do help break up the, monotony of just basically being the same level but with tougher bad guys. And if Taras Nabad sort of plays into that more and has lots of different environmental hazards, especially I can see like tentacles being in the underwater puzzles, for example, in Taras Nabad. That would be cool to see, and that would change up the gameplay. And Taras Nabad is a pretty big map, similar to Super Gore Nest, so if they can do those little things like changing up the environmental hazards, or just making fun, interesting combat puzzles in those sort of smaller rooms, would make the world of difference. And I hope to see that sort of level of creativity in the Taras Nabad master level. And I bet we will, id knows what they're doing. So that's going to do it for me. That was my talk on pacing, in Doom Eternal, and what makes good pacing in the master levels. Just, it doesn't need to be a race car like all the time. It doesn't need to be like 10 out of 10 challenging arenas and combat puzzles all the time. There needs to be sort of peaks, and there needs to be low points. But the low points can be supplanted with creative puzzles, creative combat encounters that test the player's mind and engage them. Even though they're not the most challenging things in the world, it still makes the player think. And by all accounts, id Software are going to deliver. So that's going to do it for me. Please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye.